Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Arish Hashmi from Austin, Texas, and I will be your moderator for today. Welcome back to our Journey Through the Quran series as we continue learning from Surah Al-Anbiya. In our previous session, we covered ayahs 51 to 75. Today, we will dive into ayahs 76 to 88, continuing our journey and discovering new, powerful lessons from the lives of the prophets. Before we set off on today's quest, let me tell you about some super cool programs we offer, because the fun never stops at MCNA-YMj. We offer Prime Time for Kids. It is a free monthly program where we talk about fun and important topics like entrepreneurship, boredom, and time management. Sometimes we even have prime time for adults too. MCNA also offers youth courses during the spring and fall. Our last program was a journey around the globe, in which we explored different Muslim countries around the world. We offer YMJ Book Club in the spring and fall. If you love reading and you're 11 to 13 years old, this is the place for you. Please contact your local MCNA-YMJ chapter for more details. We have a children's magazine named Companion. It is a nationwide magazine for kids, written by kids. If you love writing, drawing, or sharing ideas, no need to look further. We eagerly look for and accept new contributions from our amazing young artists and authors. Email us at mcna@icnat.org or contact your local MCNA-YMJ chapter to know our next theme and send your work to companion@icna.org for a chance to be featured in our next issue. We want to hear from you guys. Have feedback or ideas? Email us at mcna@icna.org or contact your local MCNA-YMJ chapter. MCNA-YMJ has many local chapters across the United States. For more information, visit our website and click the chapter locator at www.mcnaymj.org. Stay connected and subscribe to our MCNA-YMJ YouTube channel to watch past programs and never miss a new upload. Here you can see QR codes on the screen. Please scan them to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates on future events. Are you able to scan? Yes? Okay. If you guys can't scan, you can take a screenshot if that's easier to scan. I hope you all got it. Let's start today's program with tilawah of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. صدق الله العظيم. Now, before we dive into Surah Al-Anbiya, let us listen to some quick but deep nutritional advice related to Ramadan from Sister Dua Al-Dusuqi. Sister Dua Al-Dusuqi is a registered dietitian nutritionist. She is also a graduate of Qalam Institute's seminary program and a current Alimiya student. You can find out more about her at amuslimdietitian.com.
Barakatuh. I am super excited to be with y'all for another week. This is week 3, and so we've discussed what it means to eat to worship. We've discussed what excess when it comes to our food means, and now we're going to talk about how do we live in that in-between, where we're not eating too little that we can't hold our spine up, we're not eating too little that we can't worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correctly, and we're not eating too much that it harms our health, we're not eating too much that it leaves us feeling physically uncomfortable, that we're not supporting our body in the way that it needs to be supported. And there's something here that I want you to remember this word. It's called the hunger fullness scale. And so this is a scale that makes it really easy for us to check in with our bodies to see where we are in terms of this hunger. And the scale goes from 0 to 10, 0 being super duper extra hungry, so ravenous, right? You feel like you could eat anything and everything that's thrown in your way. On the flip side, there's 10, and 10 is so full. If you have just one more bite, you feel like your stomach cannot hold that capacity. You might feel like you're gonna have to throw up or something like that. Like you're so full. And these two extremes are something that I think a lot of us experience in Ramadan quite regularly. So we start, um, so 5 is that neutral point. Not hungry, not full. You're just like in the middle. So let's say you wake up at a 5 in the morning. You had suhoor in the morning, then you went back to sleep. You woke up a few hours later, and now you're at a 5. You're just neutral. As the day goes by, especially in Ramadan, you hit a 4 where you start feeling hunger pangs. So what that looks like for different people is different. It might feel like a a little grumble of the stomach. It might be a lightheadedness. You might not be able to focus. It's different from body to body, but every body experiences hunger and shares those signals, especially if we're in tune with our body. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then at 3 is what we call hunger has set. So you're thinking about food. You are actively hungry. You might feel a little bit weaker. And if you continue to go without eating, 2, you're really hungry. 1, 0. And you get the idea. And a lot of times for us, especially Ramadan's in the winter now, so not too bad. You might hit, iftar time. A few minutes before iftar, you might be at a 2 or 1. For some people, it might be at a 0, like can't stand not being this hungry, can't stand being this hungry. And then if we go back to the other side, you've started eating iftar. So you're moving up, moving up, moving up. Now you're at a 5. It's neutral. You're neither hungry, you're neither full. You keep going. You keep going. 6 is where food starts to taste a little different. And this is something I want you to pay attention to in this upcoming week if you can. When you are hungry, food tastes very different than when you are full. And that is how the body works. Your taste receptors are more alight. Your brain is more alight when you are hungry. And there is a point in your meal where the food actually does start to taste a little less. It's not that it necessarily will start tasting bad, but it will start to taste a little less. And if you're really in tune with your body, you can catch that point. And so 7 is what we call satisfied. Now, what satisfied looks like is that you don't feel hungry anymore. You feel like you've had enough, but you don't feel uncomfortable. So let's say you're eating, imagine outside of Ramadan. It's a little hard to do this in Ramadan, but imagine outside of Ramadan, you're sitting with your friends, you're eating, you guys went out, you're eating, you felt full, you stopped eating. But then your friends are still going. And so you take a few more bites, and then you take a few more bites, and then after that last bite, you're like, oh, I should have stopped before. That's when you jump from a 7 to an 8, where you had, maybe you had 2, 3 extra bites, and you're like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. And you can feel like fullness is a physical feeling that you can feel in your stomach. And so as you're eating, now, if you start more hungry, you tend to end up more full. And so in Ramadan, one of the things that works against us from a physiological perspective is that we start more hungry because we are fasting. So we end up more full. And so we pass 7, we pass 8, we pass 9. Sometimes we're at 10 and we're like, oh, I can't do anything else, right? And so this hunger fullness scale can really help us check in with our bodies. It can really help us tune into what our body needs, what our body's telling us, and how to stay in that in-between range, that eat to worship range, between a 3 and a 7. And so one way that we can kind of help counter the super hungry, post-iftar thing is follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ in Ramadan would break his fast on dates if available. If dates were not available, he would break it on milk. If milk was not available, he would just drink water. But the sunnah is to try to find dates if you have access to them. He would break it on dates. And then he would stop and he would break for Maghrib. And so if you think about the amount of time that takes, roughly 10-ish minutes, you break your fast, drink some water, go pray Maghrib, and then you come back to eat. And the body has a chance to realize, oh, we're not in a state of starvation. There is food available to us. I don't need to be this like ravenous thing. And you end up bringing, even though you've only eaten a very tiny amount, you end up bringing that hunger fullness scale a little bit away from the 0 side and more towards that 3 side. And so in this upcoming week, that's what I want you to kind of think about as you're breaking your fast. check in with your body if you can, and it's okay if you can't. This is a skill that takes a little bit of experience, but I want you to start thinking about it, you know. Check in before you start eating, before you eat that date. Be like, how hungry am I? Eat your date or your milk or your water. Break for about 10-ish minutes if you can. Pray Maghrib, come back to the table and check back in with yourself. And text a friend or someone else that's taking this class and ask them, do you notice that difference? And next week, inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about a few more tips when it comes to being mindful while we're eating so that we can make sure we're staying in that 3 to 7 range of the eat to worship range. All right, inshallah ta'ala, I will see y'all next week. And if you're following this and you are, I know some of you are older, some of you are younger, but if you are on social media, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm a Muslim dietitian and I would love to get your feedback on this experience. All right, I will see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Great what great insightful advice. Jazakallahu khairan. Now let me introduce you to today's guest speaker, Sister Aisha Qayyum. Sister Aisha Qayyum is a mother to her two precious daughters, holds a BA in Tafsir from IIUI Islamabad. She has been a teacher for 13 years, including at the Islamic School of Irving. She also volunteers to lead book discussions for MCNA-YMj Book Club. Currently, she works in IT. We're having some technical difficulties. If you guys could please just give us a second, that'd be amazing. So while we're waiting, I just wanted to ask you guys, how's Ramadan going? Anything exciting happen? Oh, she's here. I will now hand off the mic to our amazing guest speaker. So while we're waiting for our amazing guest speaker,
Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me?
Oh, let's give the mic off to our amazing guest speaker once again.
Assalamualaikum. Can you guys hear me? Assalamualaikum. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so
Yes, we can hear you.
can everyone still hear me? Okay. All right. So like I said, so inshallah today we'll be doing verses 76 to 88 from Surah Al-Anbiya. Now, I have a very fun game, a blue kit game, prepared for you after we're done with our talk. And I hope you all know what blue kit is. It's a really, really fun game. My students really love to play it, and I hope that everyone over here will enjoy playing it as well. All right. So I think they're working on bringing my slides online. Again, so sorry everyone for the technical issues that we had. But inshallah, once they're able to resolve them, then you'll be able to follow along with the slides as well. All right, so verses 76 to 88 of Surah Anbiya have talk about a lot of different prophets, just like the title of the surah, right? Anbiya means prophets. So in this selection of the ayat, we're also learning about a lot of different prophets. Now, in each of these prophets are mentioned very briefly, just in a couple of ayat each. The very first prophet that is mentioned, is Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. And so for Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, I think we're all familiar with his story, that out of all the prophets, he was the one that called to his people for the longest amount of time. And as I'm talking, I'm going to keep on asking you different questions just to keep you guys engaged and to make sure that you're listening. So, for example, the first question that I want to ask you is, who knows how long Prophet Nuh alayhi salam called to his people? If you know the answer, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm going to be looking at the chat throughout the entire talk that we're having so that I can know what you guys are thinking. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to use the chat to share that. So how long did Prophet Nuh alayhi salam preach to his people? Does anyone know? All right, it was for 950 years. So for 950 years, he was calling to his people again and again, believe in Allah, stop worshiping idols, be good to one another, do good deeds, because one day we're all going to return to Allah, and there's a hereafter in which there is a Jannah and there is a Jahannam, there's a hellfire. And so we want to make sure that we believe in Allah and we do good deeds so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with us and enter us into Jannah and save us from the hellfire. So this is the same message that all the prophets gave to their people. And so this was the message that Nuh alayhi salam was preaching to his people for 950 years. But despite all of his efforts, the people refused to believe in him except for just a very small group, right? And so finally, Nuh alayhi salam, he made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, I've called them and called them and called them to you, but they don't want to listen to anything that I'm saying. So in verse number 76, and you can, alhamdulillah, you can see now on your screen the slide, right? And so in verse number 76, Nuh alayhi salam is mentioned, and Allah is referring to the time when he made dua to Allah, and he said, "Oh Allah, do not leave any of these disbelievers upon the earth, because they will not only continue to do bad things themselves, but they will also teach their kids to do bad things. So there's no hope for them. There's no hope left for them." And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that when Nuh alayhi salam made this dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered him. And we delivered him and his family from the great disaster. So over here in this ayah, you'll see that in the top part, the translation, I've highlighted the words, "so we answered him." And on the bottom, you'll see the Arabic words, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ. So these are also highlighted. So this is the Arabic part of the ayah. This is the part of the ayah that matches with the English words that are highlighted. So فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ means, so we answered him. And it's actually really, really beautiful, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, he called and then we answered. Right? So it's like, right, like it just, the way that the ayah is constructed, it makes you feel like, okay, so not a lot of time passed. Nuh alayhi salam made the dua and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered, right? And so this is the same, there's a lesson in this for us, that, this is the same sort of understanding and expectation that we should have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we make dua to Allah. That just like he answered the dua of Nuh alayhi salam, in the same way, when we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should also trust that he will answer us, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And we supported him against the people who rejected our signs. They were an evil people, and so we drowned them all." So, they rejected Nuh alayhi salam, they went against the prophet that was sent to them, and who was patiently and lovingly calling to them for 950 years. And so finally, in the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supported his prophet against the people who were doing evil. Okay. Now, there are a couple of things for us to consider. So you'll see that, I have different questions on the screen for you to think about, right? So one of the things that I guess come to mind when we read these verses is, what are some things that we should keep in mind when we're making dua, right? So one of the things that I sometimes hear people saying is that they'll be very modest in the du'as that they ask, so that they make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they'll be like, "Oh Allah, please let me pass my test." Right? "Oh Allah, please give me I just want $10 so that I can buy like ice cream or something. "Oh Allah, I just really hope that I can get like a little bit of free time to have some fun." Or something. Right. So they're very modest in the du'as that they make. But actually, what we need to remember when we make du'a to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that the one that we are asking from is the one who has limitless bounty, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has everything, and he has the power to give anything at all. And so when we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we really need to ask ourselves is, what is the biggest dua that we can make? Right? So instead of saying, "Allah, please give me $10, you should say, "Ya Allah, bless me with abundant wealth and give me the wisdom to spend it in a way that is pleasing to you." Right? Instead of just saying, "Oh Allah, let me pass my test," you should say, "Ya Allah, let me excel in my test." Right? So this is like just an example of of how we should be thinking of what is the biggest dua that I can make, not just like what is like the smallest thing that I can ask for from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but rather what is the biggest thing that I can ask from Allah. And it's kind of like, it would be like a little insulting. Like, imagine if you were to go in front of a king who has like a lot of wealth and who's really powerful, and he's like, "Go ahead, ask me for whatever you want and I will give it to you." And you ask for something like really, really small, like, "Oh, actually, I would just like to have like a pair of sandals," right? And the king is like, "Seriously, I have so much wealth and I have so much power. I could give you literally anything that you want, and you're just asking me for a pair of sandals," for example, right? So it's kind of like that. So the king would feel insulted, and in the same way, when we ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we don't ask according to the station or according to the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's kind of like we're not understanding who it is that we're asking from. It's like we've made like a really, really big mistake in understanding how great Allah's power is and how vast all of how vast his generosity is and how vast his bounty is. Okay. Another question that you'll see is, when do you call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right. So the Prophet ﷺ said that when you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of difficulty, in times of ease, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know you in times of difficulty. So what that means is that when everything is going well, people tend to forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They tend to be a little bit unmindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when things get bad, when things are difficult, then at that time they're like, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help me. Oh, Allah, save me. Oh, Allah, what is happening? Like, deliver me from this situation that I'm in. So when should we call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We should balance it so that we call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of ease as well as times of difficulty, right? And then who is it? And we should ask ourselves, okay, who is it that we rely upon, right? So when we're making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should remind ourselves that we rely 100% on Allah, right? So the Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they would ask Allah for each and every little thing, even if it was something as small as like a shoelace, right? So they would ask Allah and ask Allah and ask Allah again and again and again, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not get tired of us asking from him, right? Like if you go to your mom and you ask her for one thing or two things or 10 things, right? She might be like really patient with you, but if you keep on going on and on, she'll be like, oh my gosh, please just give me 5 minutes. I need some time. I need a break, right? Or and your mother, of course, like of all the people in this world, she probably loves you the most, but even she has a limit, right? Because she's a human being. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no limits. He is completely like without any limits. His power, his bounty, everything is without limits. So when we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should remind ourselves that we rely upon Allah. We don't rely upon other people, and we don't rely upon ourselves to fulfill our needs. Our needs and everything, all the blessings that we have, they come from Allah, and we rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all those things. So if we keep in mind all of these different things, inshallah, it should have a very positive impact upon the du'as that we make. Next slide, please. All right. Verses 78 to 82 are over here. I'm not going to read through them, all of them, but you guys can definitely read them on your own, and especially pay attention again to any text that you see that is highlighted. So in these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about prophets Dawood and prophet Sulaiman. And in the translation, you'll see that I have the English version of their names, but David is Dawood and Solomon is Sulaiman alayhi salam, just in case anybody didn't know, right? So over here, a few different things are mentioned. So Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam. First of all, does anyone know who was the dad? Who was the dad? Was it Dawood alayhi salam or was it Sulaiman alayhi salam? Does anyone know? So the dad over here was Dawood alayhi salam, and the son was Sulaiman alayhi salam. I feel like sometimes it gets a little bit tricky remembering which one is which. So I feel like that's an easy way to remember is Dawood starts with D, just like dad, and Sulaiman starts with S, just like son. Right? So Dawood alayhi salam was the father, and Sulaiman alayhi salam was the son. And so what happened over here is that a person came to them and said, I have sheep. I have this one sheep, and this other, my neighbor is telling me, and my neighbor has a lot of sheep, right? And he's very wealthy, and he's telling me, give me your sheep, and he wants to take it even though it's only the one sheep that I have, right? And so So Sulaiman alayhi salam, so Dawood alayhi salam said, okay, he did an injustice to you and he shouldn't have said that. And then Sulaiman alayhi salam, actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the ability to understand that Dawood alayhi salam did not ask for any context. He didn't ask for anything. He just gave the judgment without asking for context. And so Sulaiman alayhi salam was given a little more insight into the matter. Right, and so Sulaiman alayhi salam was able to deliver a better judgment. And so over here, what we learn is that there's actually there's no age, or rather, it doesn't matter how old a person is. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to bless that person with wisdom, then that wisdom can be given even at a younger age. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out though is that sometimes, especially nowadays with since you guys are at that age where you're able to understand some things a lot better than your parents or maybe your grandparents, right? Or maybe your aunts and uncles, right? Sometimes you might feel a little bit impatient, like, oh my gosh, why don't they understand? Or, oh my God, I know I understand this better than them and they just don't get, like, maybe they're not so good with technology, or maybe they don't understand the social trends that exist in your generation, right? And so, so you might feel like, like rolling your eyes maybe, or maybe feel like sighing a little bit, like, oh my gosh, why don't they get it? But one of the things that we need to remember is that whenever we are sharing something that we know with our elders, it has to be done from a place of respect, right? Because there are a lot of things that our elders have taught us, right, when we didn't know anything at all, right? And so now there is an opportunity for us to share something that we know that maybe our elders don't know. So that's something that we should always keep in mind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and so we gave Sulaiman the ability to understand it, and to each of them we gave wisdom and knowledge, right? So the dad has Dawud alayhi salam, he has wisdom and knowledge in his own right, and Sulaiman alayhi salam has wisdom and knowledge in his own right? But just because one knows something and the other knows something else doesn't mean that one is more wise and more knowledgeable than the other. And so this is a reminder to us that we can learn from each other and we can benefit from each other's knowledge and the wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. Okay. And so the Prophet ﷺ also, he said that he is not from amongst us who does not have respect for our elders and love for our youngsters. Okay, so the responsibility of those who are young is to have respect for their elders, and the responsibility of the elders is that they should have love and kindness towards those who are younger. Okay, so for Dawood alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a very, very beautiful voice. And so when he would do tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he would do praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the mountains and the birds would join him in that tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So this was a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to him. And then he was also given the ability, so sorry about that. So he was also given the ability to make armor and shield. So he was given the ability to mold iron and make protective garments out of it. So so this was something that was able to benefit the believers in battle. So these were the blessings that were given to Dawood alayhi salam, the miracles that were given to Dawood alayhi salam. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, he was also given a lot of miracles. He was given the ability to control the winds, right? So he was able to send the winds wherever he wanted to send them. He was given the ability to command the jinns. So whatever he told the jinns to do, they had to do it. Right. So these were some of the blessings that he was given that are mentioned over here. In addition to this, we also know that he was able to understand the speech of the animals. Right. It's mentioned other places in the Quran. So these were some of the blessings that were given to Dawood and Sulaiman alayhim as-salam. Okay. And then the main thing that we learned, though, is that they were each given wisdom, they were each given knowledge, they were each given blessings. And just like they were given wisdom and knowledge and blessings, in the same way, we should reflect upon our lives, that we also have wisdom that Allah has given us. We also have knowledge that Allah has given us. And we also have a lot of blessings that Allah has given us. And so the question then in verse 80, as you can see, is, are you then appreciative? Like, do you then have gratitude? Right? So this is something for us to reflect upon, look into our lives and think, okay, well, what if Allah had not given me any wisdom? Allah had not given me any knowledge. If Allah had not, really, really curtailed, had really given me very few blessings, like not the blessings that I'm enjoying right now. What if those blessings had been taken away from me? Right? So we need to spend some time, reflect upon it, and understand how grateful and glad we are to have all of these things in our lives. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, okay. So I kind of talked about this. Okay, so why is it important to focus and reflect on our blessings? Well, first of all, because it reminds us what the source of our blessings is. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of our blessings. And so it makes us close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I'm constantly, when I'm looking at something beautiful and I say Alhamdulillah for the ability to see, right? If I'm listening to a beautiful recitation of the Quran or something else that's really, really beautiful and I say Alhamdulillah for the ability to hear, right? So this makes me close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I know that the source of these blessings is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Same way if I'm enjoying a very comfortable home or really, really fun, exciting vacation or something, right? And I say, Alhamdulillah that, I have the ability to do this. It was given to me by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this makes my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stronger. Right. Another thing is that it gives you a positive outlook. Have you guys ever met somebody who is just always complaining, who's just always like, oh my gosh, this went wrong. Oh my gosh, that went wrong. I don't like this. I don't like that. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Right. And then that person just has a very pessimistic sort of outlook on life. This is not the way that a believer should be. A believer should constantly have an attitude of gratitude, right? And that brings us to the third thing, that because we have an attitude of gratitude, our blessings get increased. And this is actually a promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made to us, that if we give thanks to Him, He will increase us in His blessings. Right? And like, how amazing is that? Like, imagine if you went to your mom and you're like, oh, Mama, thank you so much for this muffin. And she's like, aw, here you go. Here's a chocolate. And you're like, oh, Mama, thank you for the chocolate. And she's like, oh, that's so amazing. Here's a pizza or something. Like if she just kept on giving you more things every time you said thank you, you would definitely start saying thank you for every little thing that you could think of, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually like that. And because, again, your mom is a human being and she's limited in how much she can give you, even though she wants to give you everything, I'm sure. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unlimited in the amount of blessings that He can give to us. And so that's why we should do our very best to focus on and notice and really be mindful of all the different things that we can thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. It'll make us close to Allah, it'll make us more positive and happy, and it will also increase our blessings. It'll also improve our du'as, because when we're constantly noticing good things, then we will also be able to make du'a for better things, right? Like sometimes, have you ever been like, your mom says, you forgot to make du'a, sit down and make du'a. And then you're like, oh, I don't know what to ask for. And then you just keep asking for the same thing over and over again. Well, I think if we start focusing a little bit more on the different blessings that we have, it actually opens our mind and gives us new ideas on the things that we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. So definitely that. And then the last thing that I wanted to really talk about is abundance mindset. Now, one of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran about shaitan is that shaitan constantly tries to scare us and tell us, oh, you don't have enough, right? And the reason he does that is so that we'll become very miserly and very stingy, and so that we will forget that all of our blessings actually come from Allah. And then once we forget that, once we become unmindful of that, then we'll start to think, okay, I have to rely on myself to get all the different blessings that I want. And then when you do that, then at that point you become really afraid. You think, okay, well, I don't have the ability to get all the things that I want. What if I'm not able to get it? What if I share what I have right now? I don't know if I'll be able to get it again in the future. And so then you become very, very very stingy, very miserly with the blessings that you have. And that's why when we reflect on our blessings and we remember that they come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives us, it like removes that constraint from our hearts, right? It allows our hearts to relax. It allows us to remember that blessings come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we share the things that He's given to us, He will give us more, right? And so there's this peace in knowing that we can give what we have. We can give a lot of it away. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever He has written for us, He will give it to us, and we will definitely get it. And there's no doubt about that. So abundance mindset, that's what that refers to. Okay, next slide. All right, so over here in ayah 83, we have the dua of Ayyub alayhi salam. And the name of Ayyub alayhi salam over here is mentioned as Job, So Job is what how his name is mentioned in the Bible. So but I just want you to know that it's actually Ayyub alayhi salam that we're talking about. So in this ayah 83 and ayah 84, we're talking about a very, very beautiful dua that Ayyub alayhi salam made. So Ayyub alayhi salam was tested in many different ways, like really, really harsh tests, right? And so so what happened before that was that he had abundance of blessings, right? He had a lot of blessings, and he would call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was a really, really great worshiper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very, very proud of him, right? And so Shaitan said, but well, of course he has so many blessings, and so he's called out to you, why wouldn't he, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, even if the blessings are taken away, Ayyub alayhi salam will still call to me. And so he took away his blessings, and throughout it all, Ayyub alayhi salam still called upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then finally, when he was very, very sick and he was feeling very, very he was physically sick, his family had left him, and just he was in a very, very bad situation. And then finally he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Inni massani ad-durru wa anta arhamur rahimin. So he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, great harm has afflicted me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. And what I really want us to pay attention to over here, the reason it's so touching, right, this dua of Ayyub alayhi salam, is that even then he doesn't say to Allah, oh Allah, remove the harm from me. So this was the one thing that was very, very notable about Ayyub alayhi salam, is that no matter what trial, no matter what test, no matter what affliction was given to him, he said, well, if it pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me to be in this state, then I accept it, right? So he was very accepting of whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed for him. And that's a really, really amazing thing. Like, just think about like ourselves, like if the slightest thing goes wrong, immediately what is our response? It's like, oh, why did this have to happen to me? Right? Immediately we think, why did this have to happen to me? This is so unfair, right? But Ayyub alayhi salam, throughout every difficulty that he had to endure, he said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants this for me, then I am happy with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decided for me. But then finally at the end, he said, great harm has touched me, massani. So massani means when something lightly touches you, right? And then he says, you are the most merciful of the merciful. So he doesn't actually say, Allah, remove the harm from me. He just kind of, mentions it. He just kind of points it out that, I am suffering and you are the one who is the most merciful. Right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered him, and he removed his suffering. He restored his family to him, and he gave him many other blessings. And as he says, a mercy from us and a reminder for the worshippers. Right. So this is something that is really, really beautiful. This is the love that Ayyub alayhi salam had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he was willing to accept whatever it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed for him. Next slide. All right. So in these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning 3 other prophets. So again, the biblical names are mentioned. So Ishmael is Ismail alayhi salam, Enoch and Ezekiel. This is Al-Yasa, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name, but these are the 3 prophets that are mentioned, and then each of them was steadfast. So sabirin is the word in the ayah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that each of them are steadfast. And if you look at the top, you'll see in blue that there are 3 words that are synonyms of steadfast: patient, resolute, and committed, right? So these are 3 different words that describe somebody who is steadfast or who is patient, right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next verse that they were amongst the righteous. And so in the bottom in green, you see 3 different synonyms for the word righteous. So it's somebody who's principled, somebody who's honorable. And then on the bottom, I put the word improvers. So in Arabic, in the verse, the word is salihin. And so the interesting thing about Arabic is that sometimes a word has like a a richer meaning, a deeper meaning, right? So the word salihin means righteous, yes, but when you look at the deeper meaning, it means somebody who improves things, right? So like if they come and they go to a park, for example, and they find that there's trash all over the place, they'll pick up the trash and they'll throw it away, right? And so they're enjoying the park, but that place that they were in benefited from them being there, right? If they go to, for example, a library and they see that the books are like all over the place, they're on the chairs and on the floor and like on the windowsills or whatever, they'll gather all the books together and maybe put them on the tables or put them in the place where you're supposed to put books so the librarians can put them away. You know, like they'll make the place better just by being there, right? Or if they meet somebody who's sad, they'll sit down, they'll listen to that person, they'll give hope to that person, and so they'll make that person feel better. So salihin are the ones who improve things. They're the ones who make everything better, right? So these were the two characteristics that were given to them: steadfastness, sabirin, and salihin, the righteous. Okay, next slide. Okay, and then over here we have, again, so Prophet Jonas, Prophet Yunus alayhi salam. So over here we have the dua of Prophet Yunus alayhi salam. And so the interesting thing about Prophet Yunus alayhi salam is that he was sent to a town by the name of Nineveh. And so he went there and he called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He called them to believe in Allah, believe in the Day of Judgment, do good deeds, so on and so forth, right? But when the people didn't accept his call, he actually got angry at them. And so over here, you'll see it says that he stormed out in fury. He said, okay, well, if the people of this town are not going to listen to me, I'll go somewhere else. And I'll see if the people over there listen to me instead. But the mistake over here was that Allah had not commanded him to do that. Allah told him, okay, go to this town, go to the town of Nineveh, and that is the town that you have to call. Right? So him deciding, okay, I'll just go to another town was not okay. Right? And so that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that he stormed out in fury thinking that we had no power over him. Right? And then we know what happened is that he got on a ship, and then when he was on the ship, there was a big storm, and the people decided, okay, we have to throw somebody overboard in order for the sea to calm down, because they were superstitious. They didn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they thought, okay, if we sacrifice somebody on board, then the sea will calm down. And so the person that was selected to be thrown overboard was Yunus alayhi salam. And so as they were throwing him over, he realized that, okay, you know what, this is because I disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by leaving that town. And so he accepted it. Right? And so as they threw him overboard, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a big fish come and swallow him. Right? And so he spent he spent 6 days, 7 nights in the belly of the whale, or he spent some time in the belly of the whale, and it was when he was over there, right? And he's obviously getting very sick. It's not like like an ideal place for a person to be. So like in every sort of way, if you think about it, he was in a very bad situation. He is in the bottom of the ocean, inside the belly of a whale, and there's no way anybody can possibly hear him, anybody can possibly find him, anybody can possibly help him, right? And he's just completely isolated in like these layers of darkness, right? And so he calls out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the only one who can help him in this situation is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, there's no God but you, glory to you, I was one of the wrongdoers. Okay, so again, so he makes his dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we answered him and we saved him, right? And from the affliction, thus we save the faithful. So this dua is La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin, and maybe some of you know this dua already, right? So this is a dua that we should say in times of difficulty. It's a good dua to say, because just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Yunus alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can save us from any difficulty, any difficult situation that we are in. So Yunus alayhi salam made this dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in other places in the Quran that if he was not amongst those who called out to Allah, who remembered Allah, right, he would have stayed in the whale until the Day of Judgment, right? But because he made this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him. So he had the whale or the big fish come and like spit him out on land. He was very, very weak. He was very, very sick, but he was able to eat and drink and regain his strength and go back to his people. And when he went back to his people, he had like this amazing surprise. They were the only people ever who repented before the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be sent upon them. Right? So they were the only people. And so when he went back to them, he saw that they had already repented and they had already accepted his message. Because at the time that he got angry with them and he left, he said, Allah's punishment is going to come and destroy you because you don't listen to me. And then he left. Right? And so what happened was that while he was gone, they saw that, there was like these big storm clouds and coming, and they remembered what he had said. And so they thought, okay, you know what, we need to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because what he was saying was the truth. And they repented and they accepted. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran, that only this nation, out of all the nations, was the one that repented before the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came, and so they were saved. Okay, so the dua is La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. All right, and now our last slide. Okay, so over here, what are the lessons that we learned from Prophet Yunus's dua? Well, or rather his whole story. So first of all, anger can be the root of many, many problems, right? Just look at all the things that went wrong because he was angry, right? And anger can lead to a bigger problem than the one that you're currently in, right? Like maybe you're frustrated because something isn't going your way. But if you don't react to it, if you don't respond to it with a cool head, you can actually end up making things so much worse for yourself, right? So anger can lead to a bigger problem than the one that you're currently in. Okay, now what was it that finally saved him? Reflection saves you, right? So if you reflect on what you're doing, that, oh, I have a part to play in my situation, or I'm facing this difficulty because of the choices that I made, right? Then you can actually be saved, right? So reflection saves you. If you can go back to the last slide just a little bit, I'm almost done. Right? And then, but if you say, oh, this is not my fault, I wasn't the one that did this, right? If you're deflecting, if you're trying to push the blame onto anyone or anything else instead of taking responsibility, if you're deflecting, then that will actually keep you trapped. Now imagine if Yunus alayhi salam had said, oh, I'm stuck in this whale. This wasn't my fault. What was I supposed to do? I called those people like Allah told me. They didn't listen to me. What other choice did I have? I had to leave. And I can't believe those people had to choose me. Out of all the people on the boat, why did they have to choose me? Why me? Why did I have to be the one that got thrown overboard? And of course, I would be swallowed by this fish and then brought to the bottom of the ocean where nobody can find me. Only I would get stuck in such a horrible sort of situation, right? Imagine if that what had been his line of thought, right? Like imagine if that had been his mindset. If he spiraled downwards into that dark hole spiritually instead of just physically, right? Then imagine what would have happened, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, then in that case, he would have stayed there until the day of judgment, right? But alhamdulillah, right? He reflected. He didn't deflect. He reflected. He said, okay, I made some choices that were not correct. I didn't obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way that I should have. And because of that, I'm in the place that I am in. And the only one who can save me is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because as you can see, the last point on this page, no matter how big the problem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power and mercy are greater. Right? And so because he was able to realize that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him. And in the same way, no matter what situation we're in, if we keep these things in mind, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help us out of that as well. Okay? And so this is the gist of what we learned in these ayat. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and reap the benefits of having a positive mindset and of having a close connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. I would say, are there any questions? But I think maybe you guys are not able to make. Oh, I see. Okay. All right, so if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put them. I see the comments. Okay. All right. Well, okay, so stay tuned. We are going to play the Blue Kit game really soon. I'm going to share the code with you in just a minute. But before we do that, we're actually going to have Sister Zoha Qureshi, a peer counselor and a YM alum who holds degree in family life education and family therapy. Um, she's going to speak to us for about 5 minutes about connecting with Ramadan, and she's going to give you tips for elevating your Ramadan experience. So tune into her segment every week, and after the segment, I'll see you for Blue Kit. So don't go away.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Here's to another Ramadan Mind Connection. Inshallah, before we start talking about sabr, رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, we're gonna talk about sabr, and I know, you're thinking we talk about sabr all the time. We go to Sunday school, we talk about sabr. We go to halaqah, we talk about sabr. But I want to talk about sabr from a mental health perspective. So when we talk about sabr specifically, everybody always says, okay, be patient, do things patiently. Allah loves the patience, especially the beautiful patience. But what does sabr actually mean in our daily lives, right? It doesn't just, and there's two little aspects to it. A lot of people think that having sabr means just doing something quietly without complaining, even if it's hard for you, and just being quiet about the struggle, right? And other people think that sabr means you just have to get the thing done, right? And you can complain about it and you can whine about it, and that's totally fine as long as the thing that needs to be done is done. And neither of those is necessarily a good way to have patience. Now let's take fasting for an example because of Ramadan and because this is a Ramadan series, and talk about it in that way. Fasting is hard, okay? Not eating and not drinking, especially when you have to go to school and do homework and do all of these things, is a difficult thing. Now, if you're fasting with sabr, it means that even though you struggle through it, you don't complain to other people, but you can talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. And that might look like saying, Ya Rabbil Alameen, I'm really struggling in this moment, but I'm doing it for you, right? You are allowed, when you have sabr, to acknowledge the difficulty you're going through, whatever that difficulty might be. Maybe it's like a really big difficulty. Even if it's a small difficulty, like, Ya Rabbil Alameen, my sister is irritating me so much, but I am not going to do anything back to her just for you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Or things that are much, much bigger. We talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. You acknowledge that this thing is happening a difficulty is happening to you, and then you tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I'm going to try and get through this with you. And you can also say, Ya Rab, help me, because I don't know if I can get through this in a way that pleases you. And you make dua that, oh Allah, let me do this thing in a way that pleases you, because just silently pushing through can burn you out and make things worse. And then also, we don't complain to people or tell lots of people that, hey, we're struggling with this. Some of you might know people who maybe they have a difficulty in their life, and like they make that difficulty their like personality. Like every time they open their mouth, they're just talking about how hard this thing is and what a struggle it is. And I can't believe that I'm doing this, right? And that's not sabr either, right? And in fasting, it's like, okay, well, I have to fast. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I'm going to just tell everybody it's so hard I can't wait until iftar. Or even when you're sitting there going, when's iftar? When's iftar? How much more time till iftar? How much more time till iftar, right? That's another version of not having sabr. You're, again, allowed to acknowledge that, okay, fasting is hard. Ya Rabbil Alameen, I'm doing it for you. Please help me with this. Please help me with this. And acknowledging that you're doing something difficult actually helps us have more sabr, right? Because sometimes when you're trying to hold things down quietly or push them away, they come back with more force, especially when there's multiple difficult things that are stacking on top of each other. And you know, this also helps us have a better relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you talk to Him about the things that you find difficult, you feel closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that also helps you have more sabr. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all a beautiful patience, beautiful sabr that He's pleased with. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us please Him. May He help us be people that He loves and fill our hearts with love for Him. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our good deeds this Ramadan. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Now who's ready for Blue Kit? I just connected again. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Sorry, I got disconnected again. Okay, so I just wanted to let the team know. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll host the Blue Kit myself because I think it might be a little bit easier. The only thing is that because I'm having some technical difficulties, I won't be able to share my screen and show you the scores that you guys have. If you have a preference for which game mode you want to play, please go ahead and put that in the comments and I'll take a look over there. Let me just quickly get the game started in the meantime. So yeah, if there's a particular game mode that you like, go ahead and put it there and I'll see which one gets the most votes and that will be the one that we'll do. All right, checking the comments now. Let me see. Okay, don't see any in the comments yet. Okay, I see Monster Brawl is usually not the one that kids pick. Any other? Gold Rush, Crypto Hack, either one. Cafe. All right, well, Crypto Hack has 2 votes now. So I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and do Crypto Hack. Let's go. All right, and here's your code. Okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes instead of 7. All right, you guys hear that sound? I'm going to turn it off. Okay, the number is 5080304. I'm going to put it, if somebody could put it on the screen. Let me see if I can turn on my camera. Oh, there we go. Oh, but it's going to be flipped, I think. But do you guys see the number 5080304? Okay. I'm on my phone, so it's a little tricky for me, but if somebody could just put it in the comments, that would be great. 5080304. Okay, so I see that people are starting to join. Got Fatima, I've got Umnia. All right, Aisha and Sabo. Okay, 5080-304. Is there anyone who doesn't know how to get to Blue-Kit? Okay, if you don't know, in case you don't know how to get to Blue-Kit, you want to go to play.bluekit.com. All right, this is not working. I'm gonna turn off the camera. So if you go to play.bluekit.com, you'll be able to put in the game ID. Okay, another 10 seconds. All right, let's get started. Okay, and if you haven't joined yet, don't worry, you can still join. Okay, the code, in case anyone didn't get it, is 5080304. 5080304. All right, I see some people are starting to get points now. That's great. Okay, so far Fatima is winning. Oh, she's crushing everyone. Oh, Umnia's in the lead now. Oh, Fatima's back in the lead. All right, Aisha's in the lead now. All right, this is super exciting. Fatima's back in the lead now. All right, now Umniya's in the lead. All right, we've got less than a minute left for the game. All right, we've got 15 seconds now. Okay, let's go get that crypto. All right, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, let me show you guys the final scoreboard. So in third place, we have Aisha. Second place, we have Umniya. And then in first place, we have Fatima. All right. So we've got Aisha, Umniya, and Fatima. Congratulations, girls. Good job. And good job to all of you. MashaAllah, you guys did an amazing job. All right. And Jazakumullah khair for attending and for participating. And yeah, I had a really great time. I hope you guys did too. I'm looking at the comments, and yeah, Blue Kit is a little different from Kahoot, so they do repeat questions, so you get to practice them and learn from them. So yeah. All right, you guys, I guess I'll turn it over, and I'll see you next week for the last ayat of the surah. So I'll turn it back over to the organizers. Assalamu alaikum from me.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Aisha. I'm going to take from your talk and make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, please make our generation among the Salihin. Please make us of the people you love, and we make of this a situation, and make the situation of this ummah better. Ameen. I really liked how you explained how we need to deal with our elders, also how we should always be grateful to Allah and trust Him wholeheartedly. Just a couple of quick reminders. If you missed and would like to watch any of our previous sessions or series, you can find their recordings on MCNA's Facebook and YouTube channels. Jazakallahu khair, everyone, and see you all at our next session on Saturday, March 7th at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-'asr. إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.